6 months before wedding. I already knew this barbecue was going to be a disaster the second my mom called it a casual get-to-know-each-other thing. I mean, family-mandated bonding with my would-be stepfather and his family? Count me out. But apparently, the universe had a sense of humor because here I was, standing in my late dad's backyard, hovering over a sad little table of chips and punch, trying to look like I wasn't dreading every second. And then I saw him, Steve, my soon-to-be stepbrother, or hell, maybe just the guy my parents thought I'd tolerate for the next 6 months while they planned their perfect wedding. He was leaning against the railing with this infuriatingly relaxed ease, a half smile playing on his lips, sandy blonde hair catching the sunlight, blue eyes that didn't just look at you. They assessed, teased, and somehow made me feel like an idiot for noticing. I groaned internally. Great. Stepbrother? Charming. Probably the type to ruin my life with a smirk. "Hey," he said casually, stepping toward the cooler. "Need a drink?" His voice was smooth, just enough to make me tense without even trying. I rolled my eyes, trying not to fidget. "Yeah, water." Tap will do, not that I needed it. Not that I could look calm. As I reached for a bottle, our hands brushed. A flicker of electricity, or maybe it was just my overactive imagination, shot up my arm. I jerked back, muttering a clumsy, "Oops." Steve's grin widened. "Careful there. Don't want to shock me with your deadly touch." I blinked. What the hell kind of line was that? And why did it make my stomach flip? "Very funny," I muttered, trying to pull the bottle away, only for it to wobble in my hands. Naturally, I ended up spilling a little on my sneakers. Great. Just great. Steve laughed, this easy, teasing laugh that made my cheeks heat up in spite of myself. "Smooth, Alex." Real smooth, I wanted to snap back, but all I could do was groan and curse under my breath. I hated how his grin made me feel. Exposed, flustered, like I'd just been caught doing something I didn't even know I was thinking. We ended up leaning against the railing together, watching our parents do barbecue, while we awkwardly fumbled with conversation over sun-baked chips and lukewarm drinks. He teased me about my careful safety bubble, and I shot back with sarcastic quips, though my words came out faster than I intended, betraying how nervous I actually was. And the spark, the thing I was trying desperately to ignore, was there, undeniable and itching at the back of my mind. Every glance, every brush of his hand as he laughed at my clumsy jokes, made me wonder how someone could be both infuriating and magnetic at the same time. By the time our parents wandered over, gushing about some seating chart or another, I realized something dangerous. I was curious, intrigued, and yeah, maybe a little wanting more. I shoved the thought away. Stepbrother. Relax, Alex. Totally fine. Totally safe. Except it wasn't. 5 months to go. I didn't think I could get used to this, but somehow we were now entrenched in family gatherings like a bad sitcom, cake tastings, venue visits, seating chart debates, and every ridiculous rehearsal planning meeting our parents could schedule. Steve somehow managed to be everywhere at once, always leaning against the same table I hovered near, offering his hands to help with folding chairs, or just making sure I didn't destroy the floral arrangements. And somehow, I always let him. Not that I wanted to, of course. I mean, I could handle a chair, thank you very much. But his smirk made me pause longer than necessary, fingers brushing his when we both reached for the same end of a folding chair. A spark shot up my arm, and I scowled at nothing. "Careful, Alex," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "You're gonna make me dizzy with all that clumsiness." "I'm not clumsy," I muttered, tugging my hands back like a fool. "I'm precise. Very precise." His grin widened, and for a second, I swear he leaned just a touch closer. "Yeah, precise," he teased, and the sparkle in his blue eyes made it impossible to tell if he was joking or testing me. At the cake tasting, things got worse. Not the cake, it was amazing, but the way he leaned close to whisper, suggesting, maybe chocolate with raspberry, or is vanilla more your style? His shoulder brushed mine, and I felt heat creep up my neck. I nearly knocked over my fork trying to look nonchalant. And yet, despite all this teasing, there were moments that made me ridiculously jealous, like when he was goofing with Aunt Marcy, her ruffling his hair while he displayed his ridiculous charm. I'd caught myself scowling, not at Aunt Marcy, of course, but at him, wondering why a part of me was annoyed that his attention wasn't on me. Later, during rehearsal planning, we somehow ended up side by side, arranging names for the place cards. He reached over to straighten one, standing a little too close to me. My stomach did that annoying flip-flop thing that made me want to curse and smile at the same time. You know, you're way too serious about this, he said, teasing me. Relax a little, Alex. Life's not a spreadsheet, I glared, but my smirk betrayed me. And you're dangerously charming, apparently. He laughed, low, teasing, and completely infuriating. Dangerously? That's harsh. I prefer irresistibly magnetic. I almost choked. Irresistibly magnetic. Who talks like that? And yet, why did my chest tighten? By the time we moved toward dining to take a break, Steve had taken to accidentally bumping into me. Sometimes it was his shoulder, sometimes his elbow, sometimes just his warm breath fanning against my nape whenever he was close. Every time I wanted to push him away and punch him in the arm at the same time. I hated how thrilled I was by it. And the worst part? He noticed. His teasing smirk grew each time I flustered over something small. I could feel it, the way he seemed to anticipate my reactions, pushing boundaries just enough to make me question if this was some sick joke, or if he genuinely liked seeing me squirm. Why am I letting him do this? I hate feeling this off balance, like I'm both annoyed and wanting more. I can't let him see me like this. Stepbrother or not, he's a problem. Yet even as I told myself to stay distant, I found excuses to be near him. Folding napkins, adjusting the seating chart, hovering around dessert tables, every accidental touch, every playful jab, every teasing word made my pulse quicken in ways I wasn't ready to admit. By the end of the weekend, I knew two things. Steve was infuriatingly irresistible, and I was hopelessly drawn to him, and I hated it. 3 months to go. The lake trip was supposed to be relaxing. At least that's what Mom claimed when she'd sent out the group message about family bonding under the stars. Not in the literal sense. Now that we are here, it was kinda comic. My mom was fussing over towels, but in the way that felt like a little bubble away from the rest of the world, while Steve's dad lounged in a chair with his usual stern face, sipping what was probably too much coffee for that hour and scowling over his manager over phone. And there we were, me and Steve, trapped in a van for an hour with a playlist that alternated between my mom's cheesy love songs and Steve's sarcastic commentary. Seriously, is this kiss really the mood we're going for? He asked, leaning just slightly into my personal space. I rolled my eyes. Don't blame me, I muttered, adjusting my seatbelt. Blame Mom. Or your dad for letting her play this. He smirked, and I noticed the way he leaned closer when he reached for the water bottle. My chest tightened, and I cursed under my breath. Every interaction with him lately had made me palpable, and I wasn't sure whether I was irritated or secretly thrilled. Probably both. The first night, after the families had settled into their cabins, I found myself wandering near the lake, wishing for some air away from the chatter. And of course, he was there, leaning against a tree with his hands shoved in his pockets, staring at the water. Can't sleep? He asked, his voice low but teasing. I need air. And less family noise, I muttered, trying to sound casual, though my voice cracked slightly. He laughed, soft and mischievous. Same. Thought I was the only one brave enough to sneak out. We ended up sitting on the dock, shoulders bumping occasionally, watching the stars reflect off the water. There was a comfortable silence at first, the kind where words felt unnecessary. Then he started talking about pranks he loved pulling in college, his training under his father in the company, late-night music obsessions, even a story about a disastrously failed camping trip with his cousins. I found myself laughing, genuinely letting my guard down. And then I realized I was sharing too. Secrets I didn't usually tell anyone. How awkward I was with new people, or new clients I deal with on behalf of Mom, my obsession with memorizing useless trivia, the time I accidentally locked myself in a public bathroom in college. His laughter was warm, teasing, and it made my stomach flip in ways I didn't entirely like. A shoulder brush here, a playful shove there, and I realized our physical proximity had crossed some invisible line. Steve, of course, noticed. Leaning just slightly closer, he whispered, "Careful, Alex. You're being too obvious with your expressions." Not very charming. I opened my mouth to retort, but froze. Are my emotions too loud for him to hear? By the time we wandered back to the cabins, I realized something dangerous. I was emotionally invested. I wanted his approval, his attention, his smirk aimed at me and me alone. And it scared the hell out of me. I knew deep down that this was the first time I genuinely considered that maybe Steve wasn't just a nuisance. Maybe he was the only one I wanted to be around like this. And that scared the hell out of me. Night before rehearsal dinner, the day had been a disaster from the start. It was our parents' dinner rehearsal tomorrow. And of course, I was sorting stuff since my mom trusts no one. Seating charts were reshuffled 3 times. One of the final cake tastings had ended with frosting on the floor, and my mom was in a frenzy because Steve's dad hadn't approved the flower arrangements properly. And of course, Steve and I were stuck together. We were the unlucky duo tasked with moving chairs, fluffing pillows, and calming both sets of parents who were teetering on the edge of nervous breakdowns, because apparently, if any guest or the clients they have invited points out a mistake, they're doomed. I gripped a folding chair like it was a lifeline and muttered under my breath, "Why do I always get the fun jobs?" "Because you're the responsible one," Steve said, leaning against the wall in that irritatingly casual way he had mastered. "And someone has to make me look good." I shot him a glare, but my pulse betrayed me. Leaning back like that, his blue eyes catching the late afternoon sun, he looked ridiculously good and dangerously smug. By the time dinner was over, we'd both had more than a couple of glasses of cheap wine that the hotel conveniently provided for stressed-out wedding planners and their children. The alcohol blurred my edges, making the chaos feel lighter, warmer. And, of course, Steve noticed exactly how flustered I was. "You're twitching," he said as we carried boxes of napkins into my suite, a teasing smirk tugging at his lips. "Relax. I'm harmless. I wanted to believe him. I really did." As soon as the door closed behind us and I placed the boxes on the table, I turned around and found him close to me. I felt that same dangerous spark we had been trying to ignore for months. "Careful," I muttered, though my voice wobbled more than I liked. "Or what?" he teased, stepping closer. The proximity made my chest pound, and I realized my body was no longer under my control. The alcohol didn't help, and neither did the way he leaned just slightly too close, letting our breath mingle. I tried to shove aside my thoughts. He's my stepbrother. Don't even think about it. But the way his eyes shift between my lips and eyes, the way his gaze held mine longer than necessary, made it impossible. "Alex, you're blushing," he said, voice low, teasing, and entirely aware of the effect he had on me. "I am not," I muttered. My hands shook, which only made him grin wider. He leaned closer, tilting my chin up with a finger, and my words died in my throat. "Yeah, sure. Not flustered at all." And then, he kissed me. It started playfully, a teasing brush of lips, like he was testing boundaries. I froze, then melted into it. The teasing quickly escalated, hands wandering, touches lingering. My mind screamed, "Stop, stepbrother, what are you doing?" While my body betrayed me entirely. Heart racing, I found myself clutching his shirt, pulling him closer, kissing back with a desperation I didn't expect. Things escalated until I bumped against the bed, and suddenly we were a tangled mess of limbs, laughing nervously, gasping between kisses. The world outside the suite didn't exist. No parents, no chaos, no seating charts. Just him and the fire burning between us. I began, then stopped, my mind spinning. I shouldn't be doing this. Stepbrother, not okay, but I swallowed hard, chest heaving. He smiled against my lips, like he could read my conflicted thoughts. It's okay, he whispered teasingly, but there was heat in his tone. I like this you. I couldn't even respond because the next second the door burst open. My mom's horrified gasp froze us mid-tangle. Alex! Steve! She shrieked, waving a hand in panic. What's going on? Steve groaned dramatically, sitting up and covering me with the blanket while I scrambled to my feet, trying to hide what little dignity I had left. Mom, it's not what it looks like. Steve's dad, standing behind her, raised an eyebrow, lips twitching like he was trying not to lash. Not what it looks like? Really? I could feel my face heating to a dangerous shade of red. The alcohol hadn't helped my judgment, and the mixture of embarrassment and adrenaline had me shaking. Steve leaned back against me, his face contorted and protective. It exactly was what it looked like, he said, voice dripping with seriousness. We both are adults, and I don't think we have to explain anything. Steve, shut up, I snapped, glaring at him, though I had to hide my embarrassment because even in the middle of panic, the absurdity of it all was absurd. My mom's eyes were wide, and Steve's dad simply shook his head, muttering something about, this shouldn't have happened. I wanted to crawl under the bed and disappear, but Steve's hand found mine, giving it a reassuring squeeze. And even in my mortification, I felt that spark, that undeniable chemistry that we're in trouble together feeling. And God, I wanted more. Next morning at the breakfast table, the tension was palpable. My mom's hands gripped the edge of the table, her eyes were wide, and her voice was calm but firm. I need an explanation. What happened last night? Steve's dad was equally composed, though his gaze was sharp, assessing. I want the truth, he said quietly. I don't appreciate being kept in the dark about situations like this. I opened my mouth to speak, heart hammering, but no words came. Finally, I muttered, It was a mistake. I didn't mean for anything to happen. Steve's hand brushed mine under the table, subtle, but enough to make my chest ache. He gave me a glance, one eyebrow raised, and for a second, I wanted to punch him and kiss him at the same time. The teasing flicker in his eyes hinted that he wasn't quite ready to call it a mistake. My mind was a mess. Last night had been alcohol, laughter, tension, and fire. But it hadn't been just a mistake. Not entirely. I wanted more. And the thought made my stomach twist in confusion and anticipation. My mom's gaze softened slightly, but remained firm. Alex, Steve, this is serious, she said. You're going to have to be careful with each other. Whatever this is, it's not something to be taken lightly. You both are going to be stepbrothers. Behave like one. And we will forget last night ever happened. Steve's dad nodded. Boundaries. I expect you both to respect them. And I want no further surprises. His tone was measured, but the weight behind it made my chest constrict. I tried to nod, but my hands shook slightly. The last thing I wanted was to disappoint them. Yet, I couldn't deny the magnetic pull I felt towards Steve. Breakfast itself was tense. I reached for the coffee pot and almost knocked it over, and so did Steve, intentionally. My stomach fluttered. Every glance across the table, every subtle touch, reminded me of the night before and the intensity of the feelings I was starting to admit to myself. Once breakfast was over, I scrambled up to leave. But then I got a text from Steve. Steve, You really think distance could disappear what we have in between? My cheeks heated, and I looked away, trying not to react. Why does he make me feel like this? Stepbrother Alex, it's wrong, but I want him. Not just last night, not just the fire, something more, and that scares me. I caught his gaze again, still seated on the chair, and this time it lingered. No smirk, no teasing, just a silent exclamation that it was never a mistake. The tension between us hadn't vanished with the morning light. It had shifted, deepened. A week after, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Everywhere I went, there was noise, voices, laughter, clinking glassware, but under it all, a heavy tension I couldn't shake. Steve and I hadn't been alone since that morning. Our parents had made sure of it. My mom was calm, but firm when she cornered me that morning. Alex, I think it's best if you help me with the florist today. Stay busy. Focus on the arrangements, all right? Her tone wasn't angry, but it carried that quiet disappointment that hit harder than yelling ever could. Steve's dad was just as deliberate. Steve, you'll help the decorators with the sound system. Stay outside, make sure the crew gets the lighting sorted, I overheard him saying through the hallway. They didn't have to say it directly. We both knew they were keeping us apart on purpose, and honestly, I couldn't blame them. After everything that happened, what else could they do? The days stretched endlessly. Every time I caught a glimpse of Steve, across the garden, passing through the hallway, standing near the catering setup, my pulse quickened. His gaze would flick toward me for a heartbeat, intense and unreadable, before someone interrupted. It was torture. By evening, exhaustion had settled deep into my bones. After dinner, I wandered down the hall, telling myself I was just stretching my legs, not looking for him. Definitely not. But when I passed his door, the faint scent of his cologne hit me, and my steps slowed. Then, out of nowhere, a hand shot out, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me inside before I could react. My back hit the door, and a hand clamped over my mouth. I froze until I saw his face. Steve, his blue eyes sharp and burning in the dim light. Shh, he whispered, breath ghosting against my skin. They'll hear. My pulse was wild, pounding in my throat. What the hell, Steve? I hissed when he finally let go. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated and desperate all at once. I can't keep pretending this doesn't exist. I can't stay away from you anymore, Alex, I wanted to yell, to tell him this was insane, but I couldn't. The words tangled in my chest. We can't keep doing this, I said quietly. Tomorrow, they're getting married. We'll be stepbrothers. The word tasted wrong in my mouth. Steve took a step closer. You think I haven't thought about that? His voice cracked slightly. But I can't see you that way. Not after everything. Not after what we've shared these past months. Every time I look at you, it's there, this pull. I tried to fight it, Alex, I swear I did. He cupped my face, thumbs brushing the corners of my mouth. The warmth of his touch made my knees weak. I never saw you as my brother. I can't, because from the first time I met you, I felt something I couldn't explain. My throat tightened. My hands trembled, gripping his wrists. Steve, my mom, she's finally happy. For the first time since Dad died, she's finally thinking about a life ahead. I can't ruin that for her. He exhaled, a sound halfway between frustration and pain. And my dad, after everything with my mom and their messy divorce, I've never seen him home and spending time this long away from work. You think I want to mess that up? But I also can't stand being near you and pretending I don't care. Silence hung between us, the kind that said everything words couldn't. Then my voice dropped to a whisper. Then maybe this is it. Maybe this is goodbye. The air in the room felt heavy. He cupped my cheeks, his breathing ragged as if he couldn't breathe properly. Don't say that, he muttered, voice breaking. I smiled faintly, sad. This is it for us, Steve. If this is the end of our story, he whispered, pained, then let me have this one last thing. Just one last kiss, Alex. Please. My body moved before my mind could stop it. I closed the distance between us, my hands gripping his shirt as his lips met mine. It wasn't soft or hesitant. It was desperate, trembling, full of everything we couldn't say. The kiss burned, all heat and sorrow and love tangled together, a goodbye neither of us wanted to give. When we finally broke apart, my forehead rested against his. Our breathing was ragged, our hearts pounding in sync. I love you, he whispered, even if it's wrong. Even if it's the last time I couldn't lie to him. Not anymore. I love you too, I said, barely above a whisper. I forced myself to step back before I lost the strength to walk away. My chest ached as I opened the door, the taste of him still on my lips. But the moment I stepped into the hallway, everything stopped. My mom stood there, her face pale, eyes full of turmoil and confusion. She didn't say a word, just looked at me, her lips parting like she wanted to speak but couldn't. Mom, Her gaze flickered between me and Steve's half-lit room, and then she turned away, walking down the hall without a sound. My heart plummeted. The guilt hit hard, settling like a weight in my chest. I wanted to chase her, to explain, but there were no words that would make sense. Behind me, Steve whispered, "Alex!" But I couldn't look at him. For the first time, it felt like what we had might really destroy everything. The wedding day. The wedding hall smelled like lilies and champagne, the kind of scent that's supposed to make you feel hopeful, but just made my chest ache. My tie felt too tight, my throat dry. I stood at the edge of the aisle, trying not to look at Steve across the room. But of course, I did. He looked stupidly good in his navy suit, that soft smile just enough to twist something in me. It had been chaos since last night, since my mom caught me walking out of Steve's room. The calmness on her face still burned in my head. She hadn't said a word to me since, just this silence that stung worse than yelling ever could. I'd tried to talk to her, to explain, but what could I say? Sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to almost sleep with your fiancé's son. Yeah, no. The wedding music started. My stomach sank. Steve's father stood tall beside my mother at the altar. They both looked composed, polite, lifeless. And maybe I was projecting, but Steve looked miserable too. His eyes found mine for a split second. He gave me a faint, crooked smile. That same damn smile that always made me want to either kiss him or hit him. The priest started talking, but the words. Blurred, I could only focus on my mother's expression. Soft, but distant. Steve's father kept glancing at her, like he was waiting for her to say something. And then she did. I can't do this! Every head in the hall snapped toward her. My chest tightened. Steve straightened, his brows furrowed. My mom looked nervous, almost trembling. I can't go through with this wedding, she said, voice breaking. This was never about love. It was an arrangement, a business deal. Gasps, whispers. My heart stopped. Steve's father exhaled sharply, then nodded. She's right. His tone was calm, measured, the kind that made people listen. This union was supposed to merge our companies. But I think we both realized something. We can't pretend when there's no real spark. The silence that followed was heavy. My mom's eyes turned to me, then to Steve, and she smiled. Not the disappointed kind, a real, trembling, emotional smile. I saw it, you know, she whispered, the way you two look at each other. I thought I was angry last night, but I was just scared. I can't overlook my son's happiness for my own gain. My throat closed up. Steve's father gave a faint, approving nod. Our children's happiness comes first, he said quietly, resting a hand on Steve's shoulder. If anyone deserves a celebration today, it's you two. I froze. Every nerve in my body felt exposed. Steve looked at me, eyes bright with something like disbelief, maybe hope. The priest stood there awkwardly, guests whispering, my mom wiping a tear. Steve cleared his throat. Can we get a moment? He didn't wait for permission. He just grabbed my wrist and led me away from the crowd. My pulse went crazy as we stepped into a quiet hallway, away from the noise and stares. For a long second, neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick, buzzing. Then Steve laughed softly. So, our parents just called off their wedding because of us. I rubbed the back of my neck, nerves and desire tangled tight. Yeah, that's not how I pictured today going. He stepped closer, eyes glinting with that teasing warmth I'd tried so hard to ignore. Guess fate has a twisted sense of humor. We were supposed to be stepbrothers. Now what? Soulmates instead? I said it like a joke, but my voice cracked halfway through. Steve's smile softened. He brushed his thumb along my jaw, careful, deliberate. Maybe. Or maybe we just see where this goes. No pressure, no pretending. Let's date. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. His touch sent fire down my spine, the kind that made me want to close the distance. You sure? Never been surer. His hand slid behind my neck, pulling me just close enough that our lips brushed, but didn't meet. His breath hitched against mine. You drive me insane, Alex. And you're impossible, I muttered, voice low. Then maybe we deserve each other. That was all it took. The last bit of tension snapped, and I kissed him. Slow, deep, a mess of relief and years of denial dissolving into one heartbeat. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. I laughed quietly, dizzy. Now that I reflect on these past few months, our parents, in a way, were our wingman. He grinned, eyes flicking toward the hall. Couldn't agree more. We stepped back into the hall hand in hand. The guests were clapping, and our parents were teary-eyed. My mom smiled through her tears, mouthing, "Be happy." Steve's dad actually laughed, shaking his head like he couldn't believe how the business deal turned into this. There was no wedding that day, no vows, no rings. Just two parents who found freedom and honesty, and two idiots who found something they didn't mean to. As the music changed to something soft and hopeful, Steve leaned in and whispered, "So, Mr. Not Stepbrother, wanna dance?" I rolled my eyes but couldn't stop the grin tugging at my lips. Yeah, let's dance. For the first time in months, everything finally felt right. Epilogue. 1 year later. It had been almost a year since Steve and I had officially started dating. Free from parents' business contracts, obligations, and all the chaos of last year's wedding. And yet, here we were again, surrounded by flowers, music, and the soft clink of champagne glasses, this time at my cousin's wedding. Steve hugged me from behind as I buttoned my shirt, staring at my reflection in the mirror, his arm casually draped over my shoulders. I rested my head on his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath my cheek. "Remember," he murmured, voice low and teasing, "how awkward we were at our parents' almost wedding." I chuckled, pressing a quick kiss to the side of his mouth. "You mean two poor love-struck people?" His grin was impossibly wide. "Exactly that." We laughed quietly, leaning into each other a little more than necessary. Our hands roamed, playful touches that had become second nature, lingering hugs and teasing kisses we tried to keep subtle since we had a wedding to attend, though neither of us was particularly good at subtle. And then, as if the universe had a sense of humor, the door to the suite opened, and there they were, my mom and Steve's dad, walking right in. My chest went hot instantly, cheeks flushing, but this time it wasn't panic. My mom's eyes widened, then softened, and she let out a light laugh. Steve's dad shook his head, a small, amused smile tugging at his lips. "Some things never change," my mom said, half chuckling, half scolding, but with warmth in her tone. Steve just pressed a kiss to my temple, whispering, "I guess they'll never stop catching us." I laughed, leaning up to kiss him again. And honestly, why would I want them to? They both shook their heads, walking out with laughter, leaving us to ourselves. Soon enough, we joined them in the wedding hall. The music of the wedding, the joyful chatter of guests, and the soft warmth of Steve's hand in mine made everything feel perfectly right. I rested my forehead against his chest, letting the memory of that first drunken night resurface, not with embarrassment this time, but with fondness. All the sparks, the mistakes, the tension, the teasing, had led us here, to a love that was ours, unstoppable and unapologetic. "Drunk nights before our parents' wedding," I whispered, voice soft, "really did lead to more than mistakes." Steve kissed me gently, grinning against my lips. "More than mistakes, yeah. Everything good that's ever happened since." And as I held him close, feeling the warmth of home in his arms, I knew it was true. From chaos and tension to love and laughter, we had it all, messy, wonderful, and completely ours. The end ever accidentally kiss someone you shouldn't have and live to laugh about it? Tell us your story. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.